privilege and pleasure to welcome you all for a webinar organized by our chapter as a part of World MS Day celebrations this year. Multiple Sclerosis Society of India is a non-registered non-profit organization established in 1985 to serve persons afflicted with multiple sclerosis. MSSI operates through 9 chapters pan-India to improve the quality of life of the persons with MS. MSSI Hyderabad chapter started its operation in 2005 with 4 members, and now we have more than 200 PWMS, that is persons with multiple sclerosis, registered with us. We offer various services to PWMS in the state, such as home visits, annual health checkup, monthly meetings, physiotherapy, medical reimbursements like for MRI, Project Shiksha, another initiative of Hyderabad chapter to educate the deserving children of PWMS. MS may have changed our lives, but it doesn't stop us from doing what we love. We may be slower than everyone, but are determined to live our lives to the fullest. As per the theme for the World MS Day this year, after my MS diagnosis, the best way to navigate through life is to develop the attitude to never give up. And that's what today's webinar will enlighten us about. I now request our Joint Secretary, Aarti Mittal, to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. Thank you.
A very warm welcome to one and all. I'm Mrs. Aarti Vishal Mittal, Joint Secretary, Multiple Sclerosis Society of India, Hyderabad chapter. It is such a pleasure to have amongst us Dr. Vikram A, and it's an honor for me to introduce him. Dr. Vikram is a senior consultant in metabolic medicine at University of Birmingham, UK. He is a fellow of Royal College of Physicians and Faculty of Intensive Care Medicine. He is also a member of British Society of Genetic Medicine, British Society of Clinical Immunology and Allergy. He is an affiliate member of British Pharmaceutical Medicine. Dr. Vikram brings over 25 years of extensive experience in immunology, critical care, internal medicine, and genetic medicine to personalize healthcare journey of his patients, utilizing cutting-edge AI, big data, and genetics. Dr. Vikram's craft, the root cause of the health concerns, his expertise in sleep, metabolic disorder, and critical care ensures a comprehensive approach to optimize the well-being of his patients. Dr. Vikram fosters a collaborative environment, empowering his patients to become an active partner in achieving their health goals. His research work is extensively published in world-renowned medical journals. Furthermore, Dr. Vikram's dedication to global health is exemplified by his 3 years voluntary service treating COVID-19 patients in South India. His vision for his patients: embrace personalized medicine and unlock your best self. Welcome, Dr. A. Vikram, with a wonderful topic, living life to the full with multiple sclerosis. This is such a topic that all of us will have a lot of questions. Request you to all put them on the chat box so it can be answered after the presentation. Thank you. Welcome you, Dr. Vikram. Please take over.
Thank you all for inviting me. It's a pleasure to meet all the warriors whom I perceive as the unsung heroes who is trying to make the best of multiple sclerosis. I would like Javed to sort of share the screen with the presentation. This is more about you all and very less about what we can Can you blow up the full screen, Javed, please?
Yeah, just.
So as I was alluding, it's more about you lot. I'm trying to look at what we can do to make your lives more full and to the best extent. So I think during this presentation, I would try to skim through what you probably know and try and highlight some of the things which probably will make a huge difference to you all to make life a fuller experience and a richer experience.
I hope you are able to see in full screen.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Can I get to the next slide, Javed, please? So I'm trying to share a few of these guys. Do any one of you know any of these? Voice common with Salma Blair. She's a renowned American actor. Next one, please. Jack Osborne is again a TV personality in England. Next slide, please. So Clay Walker, an American country musician again. Next slide, please. So Alan Osmond is a jazz musician. Next to him is his son, who is also into music industry. Does any one of you know what is common with all these people? So they're all success stories of MS. They all had MS. They still carried on. They have now become ambassadors of MS. Unfortunately, that's not the case in Asian subcontinent. Can we get to the next slide, please?
Mr. Bala, can you mute yourself? We are getting disturbance from your side.
So this is Akashan, and he is a CSIR scientist who is the only one who is differently abled, who's hit the headlines. But the potential is huge for all of you to make a huge difference in your lives and the lives of other people. And it's all about increasing the awareness on the national forum. And I think MS Society is doing a great job of that. And I wish you all a success. Maybe in the next coming years, maybe we would be able to showcase how much MS patients in India can make a difference to the world stage. Next one, please. So I'm sure you all have learned and have been sort of bored to death about autoimmune disease. And I just want to know, is it definitely autoimmune disease or is there more to the story? And I want to talk about the hidden scripts, endocannabinoid system, your metabolic health, your genetics and epigenetics as such. Next slide, please. So we all have been told that it's your autoimmune disease that's causing all the problems. And in reality, the story isn't that simple. Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, we can hear you.
We are
Right.
we are audible, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. So there is something which is less talked about, which is your endocannabinoid system, which is present extensively within your body. This is the chemical messenger or the neurotransmitting system that basically gives signals onto your brain, and it is the fine-tuning balance. So there is not only a problem with the immune system, but also the problem with this endocannabinoid system. As a result, can we get to the next slide, Javed? So endocannabinoid system normally communicates through these two receptors, CB1 and the CB2. And the compound which is normally very renowned is endocannabinoids. Among the endocannabinoids is anandamide. As the name states, it creates an environment of pleasure and happiness within you. And when this is imbalanced, that's when the system starts to sort of cave in and become a bit more unstable. So I think this is also one of those things which is very less understood. There's been a lot of interest about plant cannabinoids, which are being promoted. I'm no way trying to promote that in this talk as such, but there's a lot of scope for that. And I think that would be something which will be changing and would be the game changer in the future. But this endocannabinoid system is something where you can regulate it and mitigate the balance that is being lost. So can we get to the next slide, Javed, please? So let's talk about the metabolic dysfunction that is very common in MS patients. And this is also very pertinent for how your MS behaves. So there is obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, hormone and lipid problems, which are probably underdiagnosed, underreported, and we don't really take a lot of notice about what its impact is on MS patients. So the more startling fact is that your metabolic dysfunction is more common in MS cohort as compared to normal population. And unfortunately, because of this metabolic syndrome or metabolic dysfunction, there's increased risk of inflammation within your body. There is increased risk of infection, wound healing is delayed, and if at all you go through any sort of surgery, the healing as such is going to be very, very much delayed. And there is a hidden risk of increased risk of cancers as well. So I think we need to probably go on loggerheads with this particular problem as well to make sure that we get optimum metabolic health. Next slide, please. So I always recommend my patients under 18.5 is underweight, your BMI. I would say 18.5 to 22 is healthy weight range. Anything about 25 is unhealthy weight. You need to start acting on and try and take measures to get this under control. So next slide. So central obesity, people always say that unless you are very obese and you can't see your foot when you're standing, you're not that obese. Unfortunately, the truth is far away from that. Men, if your waist circumference is more than 36, and in women, if your circumference is more than 33 inches, you are pushing yourself towards the risk of central obesity and metabolic dysfunction. So where is the evidence for this? So if you look, going to any temple or any archaeological scripts, you look at the sculptures or any pictures that have been drawn, none of them have got a waistline which is that big. So this is more a modern problem. So we have basically inherited it because of our lifestyle, our dietary changes, and also the fact that because it is very recent, you can always go back to what we normally were before all this happened. So there's always hope for you guys. If at all this is the problem, we can address this. So next slide, please. So the other thing which we normally don't talk about a lot is the T hormone, the testosterone. So if for most of the males, this is something which is dropping down over a period of time, and as compared to 20, 30 years ago, the amount of testosterone is very low. And that basically also does put you at higher risk of the metabolic syndrome. And you need to look at what we can do to improve your testosterone. And a lot of these keys lie in what you eat, what you do, and how you behave during the daytime or during your daily routine. That makes all the difference to your thyroid testosterone hormone as such. There's other hormones that I would talk about in a minute. Let's get to the other part of the equation. Now, can we get to the next slide, please? So for most of the female patients or female MS cohort, it's the hormonal equilibrium that's very important, because when you are still in the period of menstruation, you have a very healthy control mechanism by your female hormones that pushes your lipid risk down. But the moment you get to that menopausal stage, your metabolic risk increases significantly. So you need to try and look at that aspect as well. And I would probably not dwell a lot into the substance use, namely smoking, which is more of a problem, and alcohol, which is more of a problem with the modern millennials. I'm sure that's can be covered in other topics by other people as such, but this is basically one of the things which basically does mess up with your metabolic health, and you need to be cognizant of that as well. So the next slide, please. So there are silent characters in the story of metabolic dysfunction, your high blood pressures, which doesn't normally cause any symptoms, doesn't show any signs till it has already caused end organ damage. It's usually your blood vessels, your heart, your kidneys that tends to have an impact of that. And because there is a decade or more than a decade's lag, your metabolic health starts to deteriorate. So next slide. Now, the other thing which we probably are going to see a huge change is genetics. So most of you will have a problem with your chromosome 6, and the most common variant is HLA-DR-B1, which is again a lot of scientific term which may not be that relevant for you guys. I've been told by the organizers to keep it into non-scientific territory. So what I'm saying is there's a chromosome 6 among the 22, which does play out in a bad way, which causes your risk of MS. So next slide, please. So epigenetics is something which basically is the connection between how the disease is expressed from genetic code to the way your body reacts. So the reason being, the genes are modified by the methylation process where the genes get switched on or switched off. So you all might have not had MS when you had started, when you were born, but it has triggered off because some of the chemical processes have kicked in, and that's basically switched off the methylation process within the DNA. And therefore, it could have triggered your multiple sclerosis as such. And then there's histones, which are the proteins which are involved with modification of the gene, which causes all the inflammation and immune response. And the non-coder RNA are the ones which basically are potentially impacting how your immune cells are functioning. So they are the ones who orchestrate, are the conductors in the way your immune system is basically going to malfunction or function well as such. Next slide, please. So how do we mend this epigenetic risk? So good news is it's a lot more easier than what you think. It's all about diet, because what you put in is what the body is going to use to make these changes. And exercise, you can promote the positive aspects of epigenetics with your exercise. It is going to hugely be beneficial to your cardiovascular health and your brain functions as well. And also the key thing is about how do you manage stress, because dealing with MS is not easy. It is chronic stress that you need to basically tackle and to mitigate the negative effects on your epigenetics. Next slide, please. So I'm sure everyone has talked to you all throughout about demyelination. As you can see, there's a normal axon part of the brain cell. It goes through degeneration, and disruption of the axon happens as the time passes by. Next slide. So how does it all happen? Because unfortunately, your human body is a mini universe, and your cells are constantly having a combat with various organisms, which could be a virus or a bacteria, which try to invade your body through your nose, mouth, through the skin, and through the gut, and through the lungs. and genital tract as such. So there is always this constant combat that's going on, a hand-to-hand combat between your immune system and the foreign bodies or the foreign pathogens. So this process is non-stop running in the background. And these are the ones which would be basically keeping your inflammation or the immune system active all throughout, even when you are sleeping. Next slide, please. So when does the brain starts to recover as such? So the beauty is you do tend to do it every day in the night when you are deep asleep. So your body does try to protect itself, repair itself, and most of the myelin repair, which is the key part which does get inflamed and destroyed in MS, does get repaired in your deep sleep. So your deep sleep does enhance the myelin repair as such. It can make sure that the MOT or the maintenance work is done, and it does get rid of all the beta amyloid beta proteins which tend to damage that myelin sheath, and it clears it, and it helps to create the new memories, new learnings. So as you can see, you have a weapon in your hand which you can use it effectively. All right. So the next bit, next slide, please. So let's talk about the second brain. So the gut brain, which is something which is always active whenever you start eating anything, is intricately related to your brain. So it does through a nerve system, through immune system, what we call as mucosal associated lymphoid tissue, and also the hormones. So there is always a constant interplay between your brain and your second brain. So now this again boils down to whatever you put into your body does make a huge difference to whole of your nervous system, and you mitigate it, you tend to then change the course of your MS as well. Next slide, please. So it, as I said, every day, whenever you put in something, it does trigger your inflammation, because when you were created, the medicine wasn't created. When the humans were created ages ago, there was no way God could create the medicine which is sophisticated. So he equipped your gut with immune system, which basically agrees to accept or discard anything that you put in. So he's basically put so much in inflammatory system, my apologies, inflammatory package in there, so that it basically rejects anything which is harmful to you. Unfortunately, it can trigger this process in MS, which causes the neuroinflammation. There's the other things which also happen, which is called as leaky gut, which is now getting more renowned and more sort of recognition as to a possible pathology, or should we say a cause to get this kind of inflammation into your body. So the leaky gut can cause that inflammation, which basically again makes the bugs to go into your bloodstream and trigger the process. So the third bit is whenever you have as I was alluding to you, your body is more a universe. So your gut has more number of bacteria, and the bacteria that are there are the ones which will dictate the gut health and your immune function. So there is these things which we can easily mitigate as well. So any disruption in this bacteria or the microbiome will cause a inflammation in the gut and also in your brain. Next slide, please. So the 4 I's which could trigger your MS is inflammation, injury, immunity problems, and infections. So next slide, please. So let's try and decode ABCD of MS and see how we can live our life to the full. So acknowledge that you have MS, and acknowledge its impact on your life. That's the first thing you should do. So this is the car crash that I was in last Monday, where somebody decided to ram into me at 60 miles an hour, and that's the shape of the state of my car, you see. So I was taken for a spin, and I went into onward traffic. Fortunately, I got out of it and walked out of the car. So you all have had a car crash because of the MS. Now it's up to you to basically put up a fight and not to give in. So it's all down to the attitude as to what you want to do with your MS. If you want to live to the full, put up a fight, and then that's the best way to get to what you want in your life. Next slide, please. So how many of you start the morning with a cup of coffee or a tea? And it probably is a best thing for you. Most of you are dependent on it because that tends to give you a bit of a boost, but there is dark side to it as well. So next slide, please. So it does cause physical dependence. You can get headaches. You will feel fatigued, irritable, and you will find it difficult to concentrate if you are missing the coffee. The problem with coffee is that it does release dopamine. It does give you a happy feeling, but it's very short-lived. And when it starts to fade off, it gives you this anxiety. It can disrupt your sleep. And worst of all, it tends to have a diuretic effect that would make you lose a lot of fluid in the form of urine. So when you're not well hydrated, especially in summers, this can make things even worse for you because all the dehydration can cause is accentuate all the problems that I have listed above. Next slide, please. So the question is whether do you want to have a dopamine or there's something called endorphins. So the difference between dopamine is it does give you a motivation and reward anticipation. It does have a focus. It does make you focus and learn for a transient period of time and gives you a bit of a buzz. And you tend to go back for this buzz again and again. And unfortunately, your nervous system gets so used to it that every time the reward tends to go down. So the frequency with which you have to go to seek the same dopamine urge tends to go up, and you end up being a coffee addict or more amount of coffee which you need to be taking. So anything more than 400 micrograms of coffee is not good for you. So what's the solution? So there's something called endorphins. These are the ones which basically come in as pain relief. They reduce your stress. They give you the pleasure. But the beauty of it is they last longer. So you will have a euphoria for a long time. There is reduced pain perception. It gives you a well-being feeling. So these are very crucial for your pain relief, stress relief, pressure activities, and they're very simple to get. So anything that you do as an exercise will make your endorphins release. Your intimacy releases endorphins. Any kind of compassion that you show with your family members or your friends helps you release these endorphins. And more importantly, your sexual activity tends to increase these endorphins, which make a huge difference to how you feel at the end of the day. Next slide, please. So let's get to the B and the C. So the B, believe in your ability to manage disease. Or shall I say, an imbalance that you had, an accident that you had with your immune system, and say no to giving in and start living a fulfilling life. So the key lies in connecting with your body, knowing how this MS is impacting you. Not every MS patient is same, and every MS patient is unique in his own ways, and he has unique challenges. He or she has unique problems, and they need unique bespoke solutions as well. So you would be the only person who would be able to tell how your MSE is impacting. So you need to connect with your body, learn more about how every tiny bit would change for you when there is an MS flare. It could be buttoning your shirt. It could be basically cooking the meal that morning. Try and make sure how these things are starting to impact you. Next slide, please. So the big D. So develop a healthy eating plan that basically supports your specific needs. Not every one of you would have the same needs, but these are the basics. Make sure that you have enough iron because that's the key component in neurotransmitter synthesis and your cell metabolism. And therefore, it helps in your myelination and also how the brain cells do work. I've listed the source. You can eat red meat, fish, beans, lentils, and I think the list is extensive. You can do more research than I can basically provide in this presentation. The other thing is magnesium. So around 300 enzymes are dependent on this single element, and it is very crucial for your brain health and your functions and energy levels. So it does help how healthy nerve conduction happens and myelination happens. Next slide, please. Zinc. This is something which is very deficient in Indian soils. You probably need to take zinc supplementation because it is also something which does magic to your brain development, how you learn, how you memorize, and how the signals jump from one cell to the other within your brain. So you need to look at how to replenish these through nuts, Brazil nuts. I think the list is going to be something which would be needed to be bespoke because some of you could be allergic to some nuts. So fourth thing, which is very common, which we have been deficient, surprisingly, despite having a natural ability to make a lot of vitamin D, is because of our lifestyles. We don't tend to go out first thing in the morning when the UV light is there. And this is something which is a magic mixture that's been given by the Almighty to fight any kind of infection. It makes you feel very rejuvenated. It helps you with your brain development. It protects against the inflammation. It protects you from infections as well. And the sources are pretty much available around you 24/7, 365 days. And what all you need to do is just walk out, stay in the sun early in the morning, and then things will start happening by themselves. Some of you may not be able to do it. And for them, there's sources and supplements that are always available to help you get that crucial vitamin D supplement into your body. Next slide, please. So the other thing we tend to do with every cup of chai, every chai and a coffee is a bit of a snack, a biscuit. So the problem with biscuits is it has got refined sugars and also fructose, which is the fruit sugar, which is again a culprit because this is something which will increase your liver fat stores, and therefore it basically does impact how your body deals with inflammation. And it also pushes the bad cholesterol in your body. So the next slide, please. So what's the solution? So there you go. You go for berries, which are very rich in vitamin C. And also they are very low in sugars, a lot of fiber, because most of you do not realize that your MS not only impacts your brain, but also impacts the nervous system within your gut. So a lot of you will have problems with your gut, problems with your bladder. So options like berries, melons, stone fruits, and citrus, these are low in fructose. They are very rich in vitamin C. And on top of that, they add a lot of fiber, which all help you to sort of keep your metabolic health and gut biome in a very healthy state. And the middle bit with the nut is the avocado, because it's rich with healthy fat. And this fat is what is needed for your brain to sort of function well. And the myelin is made of fat. So the bottom line is your brain is a lump of fat, and you need to put adequate amount of healthy fat into your body. And eating a lot of carb doesn't really give you that healthy mix of fat secondary to your metabolic dysfunction. We as a race, as as an Asian race, we are at high risk of metabolic dysfunction. So therefore, we need to be picky about what sort of fats we put in. So you can take avocados every day, you can take healthy nuts. That would solve the problem of giving enough resources to your brain to repair the myelin sheet. Next slide, please. So embrace imperfections, shun perfection. You see, I always get across my multiple sclerosis patients who are very perfect. They want to do everything to the book, and they want to be perfect. Unfortunately, the problem is that the world isn't perfect. And you have to take the essence, or what we call in Hindi, raspio, rather than look at the shape of the mango. So enjoy the essence of life and ignore the perfection, because that would basically do a hell lot of good to your mental well-being, and also the amount of stress hormones that you will kick into your body every time you try for this imperfection. Next slide, please. So what are the solutions? Try and do a minimalistic cooking. So focus on what is available, fresh and seasonal. Master some of those techniques where you don't have to put in a lot of effort, especially when the days are very bad, when you have a very bad MS, or you would find that everything would be a uphill task. Try and make simple things like roasting, grilling, where you don't have to do a lot of effort into it. And the other option is make khichdis, put them into one pot. Don't have to put an effort of cooking rice, then tarkari and all that sort of stuff. Go for large batches when it's a good day, so that you can store and then reuse that. Because that way you end up feeding a good food into your system and also not straining yourself. Next slide, please. So let's talk about fashion, because I think there are a lot of female audience as well. And this is something which can become a daunting task on a bad day, because then you have to do decisions about what and how to make the fashion look better for you. So being minimalistic with the fashion is again not a bad thing. You can basically go for neutral tones, which you can mix and match, and that will help you provide the versatility. It's about the quality, not how much you basically put in. And minimalism can also be very fashionable. Go for a capsule wardrobe, because if you don't have a lot of mess to deal with, you have less time to spend on that and more time to do things which you like the most. Next slide, please. So my mantra is be an essentialist, not an idealist. Focus on your core chores. What is the must that you should do? And have a knowledge of 5 to 6 things in a day that you want to do for certain, where you can't get away. So I think the practical skills, my best movie, I always suggest my MS patients is look at 3 Idiots. The anti-hero in there is the best example of where he basically optimizes his time management. He puts in Velcro instead of buttons, and he basically tries to optimize every non-productive task to the very minimalistic time. Unfortunately, we all don't have a servant like he has, so we need to do it ourselves. So we need to look at seeing what you can do which will make the effort very little. All right. And next slide, please. So the F to G. So as I said, focus on the positive aspect of it. Your MS probably is a tiny speck of your life's day, and there is a lot to your life, and you need to look at how and what you can do to mitigate the other things. So be realistic in setting up your goals. Don't try to sort of build a fort in one day. It's all about trying to achieve things and doing the must list, and make sure you build up habits which basically will promote your metabolic health, which basically will ensure that your epigenetics are not expressing in an abnormal way, which will impact your MS. Stay informed, and I think there's a lot happening on the immunology front of it, and genetic solutions which are being thought out will be making a huge difference in the next decade. And more importantly, journaling. Make a list of your symptoms, see what does trigger it, how things are changing, because you need to constantly adopt yourself, and you are the best person who can tell about your MS to somebody who is treating you. Don't go for somebody who is very specialist in neurology or immunology. Go for somebody who is very holistic in your approach, so that they can understand. And the best way you can aid that clinician is by having a log of your symptoms and how you can see they impacting, because the solutions come from you, and you need to know how best these solutions will match to you. And that will only be possible when you provide the information and the data that can then be used to give you a bespoke solution. Next slide, please. I'm almost to the end of it. Look, everyone needs to be a bit kind to yourself, because you all are warriors. You have got wounds from the fight that you're doing. So chill out. Sometimes you need to be a bit more mischievous. Let somebody pamper you for some time. Be kind. And that kindness will only come when you are not being very perfect, and you are not pushing your people around you, especially your family members, trying to put high stakes around. So just be kind to yourself, kind to people around you, and that will come back to you. Practice humor, because that is something which will again help your endorphins. Medications, as I said, be proactive with all the 4 I's. If there is any sign of infection, try not to wait for it to sort of hit you very badly. Start basically treating it more effectively, and try and build a strong network around you. Last slide, please. So now about the romance and intimacy. I don't know how many of you are active, and if you are not active, my question is why you're not active, and why are you not being involved in that process? Next slide, please. So there's a lot of benefits to being romantically involved and being intimate with your spouse or partner. It basically improves your cardiovascular health. It is going to reduce your risk of heart disease. It helps you with alleviating your pains, headaches, menstrual pains, and other aches. It does boost your immune system. Every time you are participating in any intimate activity, it improves your sleep. And for female counterparts, it helps to help you with your pelvic floor health. And it basically improves your bladder control and improved sexual functions as such. Next slide, please. Psychologically, it is a best stress buster. It increases and improves your well-being and elevates your mood. It gives you that self-esteem and strengthens your bonds with your close partners or your partner as such. My apologies. What I meant was your close partner. So last slide. So my take-home message is living with MS is a marathon, not a sprint. So pace yourself. And that's all I have for today. I'm happy to take more questions. We are going to do a poll of 11 questions at the end of this. So if you can fill that, maybe we would be able to discuss the poll after the question and answer sessions.
Thank you, Doctor. Very valuable and detailed insight. We will take this question. I would request audience to please put the questions in the chat box and also simultaneously answer all questions as you can see on the screen. Thank you.
I hope you all are able to see the poll. So there are 11 questions. Question number 1 to 10 are simply yes and no. And last question is you can, write a short answer. I hope you are all able to access the poll. So you have 5 minutes to fill them.
I'm not able to see that.
Javed, I got only one question.
You scroll down and see.
Nothing is seen for me.
No, the question answers are not visible. Questions are not visible.
Javed ji, maybe you can try relaunching the poll, close it and then relaunch.
No, it's already relaunched. It's already relaunched. So we'll have to end the poll. But here I am able to see the responses. So far, we have received 14 responses out of 73. That number is increasing. I don't know why few are not able to see. This number is increasing. Responses are increasing on my screen.
Okay, good. Then we'll continue.
Nothing is visible for me. Totally
Are
dark.
you maybe on mobile? I don't know whether on mobile you are able to see it or not. You'll have to just see in the participant list and below the participant list.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, I was trying to fill it, but before submitting, it just disappeared.
Yeah, before submitting, it just closed.
Can I come in with a question?
Javed ji, I did take up the poll and submitted. You want me to do it again?
No, those who have submitted, no need.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, I would request the audience to please put the questions in the chat box and we can take up the questions simultaneously.
Yeah, so I think Maheshwari, he has raised his hand, so he can ask his question. Maheshwari, you may ask your question.
Yeah, can I come over the microphone?
Yeah, you can ask your question.
Yeah, thanks a lot, doctor. This is Maheshwari Natsimhan from Chennai chapter, and I've been living with MS for the past more than 25 years. You have touched a lot of topics which maybe other doctors have not done. Okay, mainly I was interested in the fashion part of it. That was really something good. That was really good. And I want to ask a question. how does stress affect MS people, passive or actively, and how to manage this?
Right. It's a very interesting question. So basically, stress as such is something which basically causes a hormone called adrenaline or a chemical called adrenaline that is released in very small proportions. We are talking about 1 in 10 lakhs or 1 in lakhs proportion when you are under a lot of stress. Like if I make you run, or you're faced with a life or death situation. But the problem with MS is that these triggers will constantly keep releasing these hormones or the chemicals into your body, and therefore it basically always keeps you at the edge, so you're always bubbling. So it's like, the best analogy is if you are boiling milk and it starts to bubble, you will always see that the bubbling milk can only be basically put off by pouring some cold water. So if you don't put the cold water on, the inflammation will carry on, and that will basically keep pushing the signals to your brain and your immune system to keep themselves very active. So the trigger could be the fact that your other half probably hasn't listened to what you said, or he hasn't done what he is supposed to do, or within the timeline he's been asked to do. So as long as you are trying to push others to give the signal into your body, that can be a simple trigger. The other thing is, maybe you're eating something which basically is also causing those triggers. Like if you are somebody who's taking refined sugars, that can always cause inflammation. Therefore, the stress will therefore increase on your bowel system, which is present within the gut. So I think to say what causes the stress is a bit more difficult to be all and end all answer for each patient. So there would be something like the stress might be something which could be because of physical or psychological or metabolic aspects that would be pushing each person to that point. So therefore, it has to be an overarching look at each person's how do I say, metabolic health, which includes both physical and psychological aspects of it. Hope that answers your
Okay,
question.
doctor, thank you for that. But if there is stress which gets built up, like हम लोग stress को दबा के ज़्यादा reaction नहीं दिखाते हैं, तो इसका परिणाम क्या होता है?
So that's what I'm saying. When you are stressed, you are not all gods. So even God does make mistakes and he does get angry. So we're all humans at the end of the day. The trick is not to make it linger too long. So blurt it out. The best thing I would suggest is do shouting therapy. Go into your room, shout out loud, and then get it out of your chest. All right? And then come back out and behave as if it's normal, because once it's out, that's best for you. Don't keep it in submerged, because it's going to sink you otherwise.
Thank you, doctor. By shouting, I don't think somebody will put me in an asylum.
No, you don't have to shout out loud, ma'am. So you can always shout without making any voice. What I meant is ventilate it out. Don't put it in.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that information.
Sushma, there are a few questions in the chat box, so we can take those questions.
There's one question, doctor. Which food to be avoided? What are the foods that should be avoided?
That's a very interesting question. Basically, it all depends on which part of the world you come from or which part of India you come from. So lots of people who are from Punjab are known to be allergic to wheat. So celiac disease is something which you probably need to screen. And if you are somebody who is celiac, you probably should avoid anything which has got gluten in it. So gluten is one of the most commonest things. Second thing is, if you are a metabolic person or if you are somebody who's not having a waistline, which I have said, you probably need to look at refined sugars, and artificial sweeteners are the other things which you should avoid. And I think go for a brown rice or a black rice, which probably will be more helpful for you, because it wouldn't basically increase your risk of metabolic disease as such. This is not an extensive list. As I said, you probably need to look at what your situation is. And then it also depends on few of your genetic predispositions. So that is something which we need to look into.
One more question, doctor. You mentioned about REM sleep, the deep phase of the sleep, but a lot of our MS friends, they suffer from insomnia. They are not able to get, adequate.
टाइम हुआ जब तक तुम बाहर थे.
Deepali, request you to please mute yourself.
हेलो मैम. हेलो सर. सर आई हैव PPMS और मेरा है ना वेट इतना ज्यादा बढ़ रहा है. आई एम नाउ ऑन ऑक्सीजैप. रितुक्सीमैब था और दिस टाइम ऑक्सीजैप इंजेक्शन स्टार्ट हुआ है और ये वेट कंट्रोल नहीं हो पा रहा है. मैं वॉकिंग से व्हीलचेयर पे आने के इसमें हो गया है. PPMS है. तो क्या करना चाहिए मुझे? शुगर और अवॉइड करना चाहिए या कैसे?
So basically, you need to basically look at how much fiber you're putting in your body. So increase the salad in your body as much as you can. Every portion that you take in, make sure that there is 60% of your food, which is salad. And the salad should go in first, and then you have to eat the rest of the food, and avoid eating anything which is refined sugar. And if you're still struggling, there are options wherein they can give you injections which would probably decrease the weight, but I would not recommend it as a first line option.
Yeah, I am vegetarian, sir.
Yeah.
Sushma, you are on mute.
Doctor, I'm losing weight drastically. My name is Bharat and I'm talking from Chennai. I'm losing weight drastically. I was 80 and now I'm 62, 63. I don't know why. I'm eating tremendously, but I don't know why I'm losing weight. Is this something?
How old are you?
I am 39 or 40.
Okay. So as I said to you, you probably need to look at the rest of the hormones in your body. It could be a problem with your thyroid. It could be overactive. Or the other thing could be that you probably are eating thing which isn't agreeing with you. So you would probably need to be screened for a celiac, and also probably need to have a camera test where we do pass a camera from your food pipe and from the bottom to see if there is a problem there. And it also depends on any other red flag signs that are causing this to happen.
And also, I'm sorry. Many of the doctors are suggesting for urine culture. Whether is it required for the urine culture? Because I feel that there is stinky smell coming up when I go to the restroom. So I also felt that urine culture it may help me to know about my kidney as well.
So urine culture is something which basically tells you what bug is growing in urine. It doesn't tell you about your kidney, but it is a good reflection of how healthy your kidneys are. But by then, your kidneys have already probably been hit. So we are talking about being proactive, not reactive. So the cultures probably are going to be helpful, because you will not end up using non-specific antibiotics, which are very strong.
Doctor, one more question. You have mentioned about
the question on sleep. You were asking about that question, and
Yes.
somebody interrupted. Can you
Yes.
please continue with that question?
Thank you, Tara. Yes, doctor. So you had mentioned about the REM sleep, the deep phase of the sleep, and that is which is very important for the remyelination aspect. So could you please tell us some tips on how to get that deep sleep? Because many of my MS friends do encounter insomnia and sleep issues.
So as I said, sleep is something which is the magic mixture, or magic bullet that basically is going to change the course of your MS. It probably is the one which will basically decrease your risk of relapses and increase the remission. So the key for you is to figure out what is causing your sleep to get disturbed. Is it a late cup of coffee? Or is it the fact that you haven't engaged your endorphins? Thirdly, is it because you are using digital devices which are having a bad sleep hygiene for you? So my tips would be, don't take a cup of tea or coffee in the evening. Go for a good walk. 3, if you are sexually active, indulge in it. Number 4 would be basically no digital devices in your bedroom. And number 5, you could try things like lavender oil, which basically you can put it on a tissue and sleep on next to it. Or you could even try lavender steam, which basically is going to give you a sleep rhythm. You can also use drugs, but I would not recommend using them for a very long time. So you can try melatonin, which basically will help you get the sleep rhythm. And you have to use it for about 2 or 3 weeks max, and then you have to break the cycle again. So that's probably a synopsis of what you can do to improve the sleep. And it is important for you to have a very good quality deep sleep. It's not the number of hours that you're sleeping, it's the quality that counts the most. And getting that deep sleep, therefore, is very important. When you get the sleep, it doesn't matter whether you have it during the daytime or in the night. Make sure that you get the quality sleep and crash like a log, sleep like a king.
Thank you, doctor. Given the time, we'll take one last question. How intermittent fasting can help MS, or do you recommend intermittent fasting for people with MS?
So this is something which is hot in press, but we have been practicing intermittent fasting in India for a long time. So that's the reason why most of the girls do Karwa Chauth Vrat. And there is always a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So this is not something which has been new. We just have a Western version of it, which has been popularized. The key is that you need to make sure that you are sticking to intermittent fasting depending on your metabolic health. So there are a few of you who would have enough reserve in your body which can basically be burnt and used to survive your day. But there are a few of you who are very slim who probably wouldn't be able to cope with lack of energy. So to give a single short answer would be probably difficult without knowing what you are like and what's your metabolic health. You're slim built, you can't tolerate fasting, that will make only your symptoms worse. But if you are somebody who's a bit chubby, has got enough fat in you, your body will burn it, and then you will be much perkier. Second thing is your brain will cope with ketones far better than your sugars. So whenever you give ready sugars to your brain, it causes a brain fog. Whereas if you go on to the ketone side of it, you will be a lot more active because that's an ancient evolutionary response that your body has developed. Because if you are a Stone Age caveman or a woman, if you are hungry, you always are laser focused because otherwise you would die of hunger. So you will be laser focused to look for your next meal. So that's how people used to hunt. So having ketones is not a bad thing. but it's all about how well you can cope with and what is your energy reserves is the key. And obviously, if you are somebody who is insulin dependent, that makes it a lot more difficult to cope with ketones.
Thank you, doctor. So can we take up the poll results now?
Javed, can I get the poll results? I think
yeah, I already shared it. Yeah, you can see the result.
So is it in the thread or?
Is it not visible? You are not able to see the poll result?
I think I probably did something which is. Can you sort of, just a second.
Can I read out?
Yeah, you can read out, see what is the calmness. First 3 or 4
Yeah,
hot
yeah,
topics.
I can read out the percentage.
Yeah.
Question number 1 is, do you start your day with a coffee or tea? 74% says yes.
So there you go. You have to realize that you have a saving account every day, and that saving account has got limited balance. That's your energy and well-being. So if you start burning the start of the day with a cup of coffee, then you have burnt through a lot of your saving in the first day or the first half hour of your day, and then there's 23 hours of which, even if you sleep 8 hours, there's still again quite a large chunk of it that you need to deal with. So go for some sort of herbal options. You can go for chameleon tree, which is very good for with your bowels. It does give you that feeling of smoothness. Some would also vouch that it does help with weight loss. So you can try that as an option. I'm not saying don't drink coffee at all. Use coffee as a treat and as a delicacy, so that chote cup, less frequent.
Second question is, do you suffer from headache during the day? 24% says yes.
So there you go. I think this might not be reflective, but if you are having headaches, then you are also drinking coffee. You are basically not having enough blood in your body because you will be dehydrated. And once you get dehydrated, your blood becomes thick. So it doesn't pass through your heart and your brain blood vessels as effectively as you should. So I would say when you get up, make sure you drink 2 to 3 liters of water. And in the first half hour or an hour, push yourself to drink more. I'm cognizant of the fact that some of you might find it difficult to go to the toilet, but you might not be mobile enough to do that. But there should be an effort to make yourself well hydrated, because that would sort your headaches a lot more. And those headaches can drag your whole day down. So try and be proactive and deal with what you can do. And you are by all means allowed to take some paracetamol first thing in the morning before you start. Yeah.
Yeah. Third question is, do you crave for a sweet treat? 50%, 56% says yes.
So this is again an indication about how much dopamine does play on your brain. So your brain is basically wrecked every time, and you need to make sure that the sugars that you're asking for is a reward. So convert that as a endorphin driver. So do something nice, then treat it with a bit of sugar. Not a lot, but you all deserve a treat. So don't use it for your dopamine, use it for endorphins.
Yeah. Fourth question is, are you a perfectionist? 50%, 54% says yes.
So again, you guys have got limited energy, limited time where you can be 100% laser focused. So you need to know which of them deserve that 100% focus. So I'm sure you all have dated. You all had your share of finding a partner. When you're finding your partner, you always put the best thing out. So this is all about finding the best thing out in your day. So if you're a perfectionist and you try and spend a lot of time on all the things that you do, you will mess everything up. So be your best at what the 4 or 5 things that you want to do. And let's say all is well for the rest of them. Okay? And
next one is, are you very critical when you or others do any mistake? 52% says yes.
So more than half of you want to be very, very precise. As I alluded in the first question, every time you try to be very critical, it does drive a lot of stress hormones in your body. And therefore, that increases your risk to your MS getting triggered. So it's all in your hand. If you can say, let go, chalta hai, so a lot of things will be a lot more easier for you guys. And you can then choose what will be your response rather than be reactive. So then it will be more productive for you. It's all about efficiency and efficacy, how you use your limited resource that you have so that the day becomes better.
Next one is, do you feel you had enough sleep in the night before? 48% says yes.
Yeah. So I think the key is if you are very fresh in the morning, that would mean that you have had enough sleep. Whereas if you're dragging through the day, it's not the hours that count. As I said, it's the quality. Have you had enough deep sleep? So concentrate on the deep sleep.
Next one is, do you exercise at least 30 minutes in 24 hours? 63% says yes.
So that's a good start. So you can only get better. All right. So try and get yourself going. Make sure that you increase 30 to 60. And the more you do it, try and do it in the evening so that that will contribute to your sleep if you are somebody who is suffering with sleep. And make sure there is some moderate exercise at night. And I'm sure you all know what I mean.
Next one is, do you struggle to cook for yourself and family? 56% says yes.
So as I said, you will have good days and a bad days. When you have a bad day, if you adopt minimalistic cooking, and that will make a huge difference. Unfortunately, most of the MS patients will have to think about their next generation as well. So if you start putting in the new cooking regimes, you will probably teach the same to your kids because the risk of MS would be slightly higher in your progeny as compared to normal population. So you start them teaching now, they will be able to mitigate things and the risk down the line much better.
Next one is, can dressing up to go out can also be very difficult at times? 73% says yes.
So this is again alluding to the fact that you will have decision fatigue, and making those decisions should be made easy for you guys. And I think therefore minimalistic styles would be a best way forwards for you. And I think Bermani, is that the one who is the character who plays in Three Idiots? Could be the clue. I'm not a lot into fashion, so I'm somebody who is a very minimalistic. And I think there are few girls in the audience who could probably come up with much more creative solutions.
And the last one is 44% says they are sexually active.
That's good. So what's happening to the rest of 60%? Why are you missing out? Why don't you catch up with the rest of the 40? So this is something which is being created by the Almighty, if you are somebody who is a believer of God, to equip you lot at whatever age you are to enjoy the fullness of your life. So why are you depriving yourself from that?
Thank you, doctor. So these were the questions. So last one was the short answer. So we will have to analyze that. I will share later on.
Sure. So we'll basically try and answer most of this through Twitter if there is any new questions. So hopefully, I think I have equipped you all with solutions. I always believe that problem is not the issue, it's the solution that you need to concentrate. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you, Doctor, for patiently answering the questions and giving your valuable and detailed insights. I now request Ms. Sudhaji to give the vote of thanks. And just before that, I request audience to reach out to the doctor if you have any questions on his email ID, which we will be sharing in the chat box. Also, you can stay connected with the doctor on the social media handles, which will also be given on the chat box. Javedji, request you to please put in those in the chat box, please. And I request Ms. Sudhaji to give the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushma. Hello, everyone. Before I say my bit, I request you all to please stay on, don't log out. We need to take a group picture and open your videos after my vote of thanks, and please make a heart gesture at the end so that we can all take a group picture. Javedji will take the picture. Thank you. Yeah, so I, Sudha Nyapati, on behalf of the Hyderabad chapter of MSSI, extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Vikram for his insightful and inspiring talk delivered today. Your expertise and dedication to MS care has not only enlightened us, but also encouraged us to strive to improve our health and live life fully. We are privileged to have had the opportunity to listen to your valuable insights, especially on the potential use of cannabinoids and understanding and addressing of metabolic dysfunctions, epigenetics, dietary effects, role of endorphins, being an essentialist. Thank you for broadening our understanding and perspective. Your inputs are easy to follow and serve as a guiding light for all of us MSPs. I also extend my gratitude to our project manager, Mr. Javed, for his continuing support in facilitating these events for the cause of MS. Last but not the least, sincere appreciation to all participants here for your engagement in making this webinar a great success. Your presence has made this event really meaningful and impactful. Together, let us foster a community of solidarity and empowerment. Once again, thank you, Dr. Vikram, for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us. Looking forward to more learning opportunities in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I request you all to switch on your camera?
Doctor, you can also make one. Yes. Are we done, Jared?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for the wonderful session, Doctor. It was wonderful having you here.
Thank you.
All the best to you all.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you,
Ma'am, thank you so
everyone.
much, Doctor.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, colleague. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, doctor.
Jared, recording closed?
Jawaji, please close the recording.